Thank you.
So I didn't really plan a very formal presentation for this. I just want to show you sort of the process that I go through for creating my slides, and also, you know, a kind of prototype of a framework that I've built in order to take care of this. So, as I mentioned before, the presentation framework, or what I use to create my sites, is called Reveal.js, and I don't know, it's an HTML presentation framework, right? And this is the website for it. Sort of a weird one, but you can just type Reveal.js and you'll see it. The nice thing about it is that it is HTML, so you can see it in any browser, on any device. If you have an iPhone, you can look at it in an iPhone. It has built-in, built-in structure to like do the swipe detection, and it's already created for you. This is sort of the main page for the framework, and they also have a GitHub repo which you can get to right here. But I'm going to go through it and kind of show you what it does, and I'll show you a version that I created for myself that's a little bit different. So you can create really nice slide decks and publish them on the web easily. So all you have to do is, if you have an FTP sort of server, you just drop it in there. You can also push them to GitHub, and I'll show you how I do that because it's a little bit different. So that one of the things that I'm doing is with every course that I release now, I think my screen's like a little bit high res. Let me change the resolution a little bit. Okay, that's probably easier, right? It will be a little bit easier to okay, so you know, the presentation will show up on any device. It's all made for the web, very accessible. Everything that you see in a presentation, you can copy and paste. The links are clickable, which is really great. If you have a link, all you do is just create a link tag, use a link tag in HTML, and that gives people the ability to go to that website. You know, one of the problems that I see with presentations is that they may have a link, but the link is like this long, right? And you're like, okay, I can't type all that. You maybe try to take a photo. And usually what I do is I tell people, hey, in this presentation, I have like a little bar at the bottom, and it has all my contact information. That's one of the differences in my framework. My framework has a persistent little bar at the bottom that's on every slide. People walk in late to the slides. They don't stick around for your whole intro. They forget to write it down, and so I usually do this plus Bitly. I'm sure some of you guys have seen Bitly. Bitly is a URL shortener. The nice thing about Bitly is that it lets you customize the link. So if you have, for example, if you want to create a link, URL shortened link, you create that link and you paste in, say, Reveal.org. It creates a little link, but the links look like this, right? And you know, that's hard to type, but you can customize it if you want to. You can say the awesome Ray here, and then it'll test it to make sure that nobody has grabbed that link. And so this is one URL shortener that I really love because it's easier to say just go to bit.ly/the next 15 as opposed to capital B, lowercase y, capital G. You know, it's just much easier to remember. So that's one of the things that I use in my presentation, and in my framework, I have that available on every slide because invariably people want to know how to get to your slide. I would love to see that deck, all the decks that I saw today, but unless you give them a link, and if you make the link easy to remember, that's really good. So let's go back to Reveal.js. A lot of advantages to having something that is essentially a website, not just a deck that is a series of pictures, but actually a website that's interactive. So this version of Reveal.js has vertical slides, so you can make vertical and horizontal slides. And there's also actually a version of this that is WYSIWYG. So if you don't want to know if you don't know HTML and you just want a quick presentation that is web accessible, you can go to this website called slides.com, and it has a GUI, graphical user interface, for creating the presentations that is pretty easy to use, and it also creates a web page so that you can use it without having to be more technical. So let's see, there is a slide overview, so if you want to quickly jump to another slide, you hit the escape key. Let's see, you can also click, so it has all these other features, I don't need to go over it. Touch optimize, so if somebody's on a phone, they just like swipe. If they want to go to the slide overview, then they can grab your fingers and pinch, and it will go out to that overview where you can use your fingers to go to the presentation. So Markdown support, so this is the part that I thought was fantastic. I love building presentations, but I don't really, I am a developer, but I don't really want to code my presentations in HTML. It takes too long, you know, creating like unordered lists or ordered lists. I just really want to focus on the text of the presentation and what I'm presenting, not on writing HTML code. So this supports Markdown, and the way that it does it is by you create a section tag in HTML, and then you close it out. And then in the middle, you put in the Markdown. Well, essentially what I did is I took this concept and I made it so that when you write your slides in my version, you're always using Markdown. You are never building them in HTML, so they're much easier and faster to produce. So I'll show you that once I get to my part. Let's see, fragments. So fragments are a way of creating steps through the presentation. Like I mentioned, I don't really like to have all my bullet points because people will read in advance, and I'm like, please don't read. I'm going to talk about point 4 when I talk about point 4. So I found that for the stuff that I do, especially as I'm developing lynda.com courses, I prefer to have my bullet points show up one by one. So in my version, this is the default. Every bullet point shows up one at a time. You can overwrite it if you want to, but this is the default. So transition styles. This framework supports all kinds of transition styles. Let's see, if I click on any one of these, they'll activate, and notice that now they fade. I'm not a big fan, so slide would be, they come in from side to side, but anything that you would see in a normal presentation, you know, application like Keynote would work in here as well. So these are pretty cool concaves. I'm not a big fan, and in Lynda we have a very simple style. It's really plain. The presentation that I showed you earlier is actually developed in CSS so that it looks like our lynda.com templates that our graphics department creates for us using Keynote and you know, some other presentation frameworks in the past as well. But if you really love them, thing like this, it'll do that for you as well, although we have it turned on. And you can also have different themes. The theme that I use again is that very simple lynda.com LinkedIn Learning theme, but you can actually switch between themes really easily. So by just, creating a link, you can see all the different styles that come with the platform as well. So the default one is this one, and it's dynamic. So I'm changing the theme while I'm going through the presentation. Not something I do all the time, but right. You can also have backgrounds. So what you do to create every presentation and every bullet point can be passed along additional pieces of code that will determine how it looks. So for example, if I want to change the background to a color, then I can issue this command, data-background equals what, and then I can have a background color. In addition to that, you can have a background image. You can also have a style background image as well as a video background, which are pretty useful. And I'll show you the code for that because I think the way that I do it is easy. You can have this data background video tag in there, and then you just specify the URL. But anything that you would put in, like any embed from YouTube, you can just copy and paste their code and paste it on your presentation. And again, it's this HTML, so it's anything you do in HTML, you can do with Reveal.js. So if you have a really complicated interactive graphic that uses JavaScript, or perhaps you have a React application or a Vue.js component, you can embed that really easily by just putting the code in there. Because anything that you can do with HTML, you can do with this presentation network. I saw the gentleman earlier had a video, and you have to go to a different page to showcase it. So you just embed that as an embed within that slide, and it'll show it, you can interact with it. Super awesome. So I already showed theme, video backgrounds. You can also have fancy stuff that I don't really use that much. Background transitions like this. Also, this is really cool. One of the reasons why I started using this framework was because my slides have a lot of code. And the problem with code is that unless you format it, it doesn't have that nice syntax highlighting that developers really like when they go code. And so this by default will import a plugin that will syntax highlight the code. One of the differences in my version is that this code here is not editable by default. No, actually this one is. But there's actually like an additional tag that you have to insert in the code for it to be editable. In my version, just because I'm trying to make it easier to write, my code is always editable by default as well. So you can have a list, and because when you write in Markdown, creating a list is super simple. If you know HTML, it would be like UL, and then UL and then LI, close to the beginning tags, right? And then you have to close the UL. In Markdown, you literally just put in dashes, like at the beginning of a line, and it writes the list. If you want like ordered lists with numbers, all you do is just put the numbers, and you go 1 period, 2 period, and that's literally how you write a list, and it'll do the proper styling for you automatically. So this is an ordered list, and it looks great. And like I said, it's also responsive. So as you rotate your devices, it will show properly and swipe and everything. Rotation styles. You can also link between slides also, so you can go to a different slide by clicking on a link. You can link to anything, it's just HTML. There is also a speaker view, which is sort of cool, which I don't tend to use this. The speaker view is S. Somebody's telling me what to do here. So S.
It says it on the bottom.
Oh, I did. Okay. Did I not read that? Yeah. Speaker view is kind of like this. Gives you a timer. I'm not good with doing it in multiple screens. I always have a problem getting it to run in 2 screens, but it's there if you want to. And also, you can have notes in the slides, so it's very easy to have your own notes. The way that I use notes for my slides is my speaker notes is what I read when I'm recording a course. And so I'm writing my script and doing the slides, and it's the same document, so I do them both at once, which is really useful and easy to do. So you can also export if you need to disseminate these as a PDF, you can export it as a PDF. The nice thing about Markdown is that Markdown is super flexible. It lets you export in a variety of formats. So whether it's like RML, whatever, .doc, you can take that same content and then export it and serve it in different ways from a single Markdown document. So so you also, this is really cool. If you're a developer, you can actually insert a data state attribute in a slide. And when you insert that attribute, it will be added as a class on that slide. So you'll have an additional class, whenever that slide appears, you'll have an additional class that then you can use CSS to do something interesting on the page with. You can do whatever you want with that class, because now you have a class that's global, and anything that you want to do, that's pretty cool. But it'll also issue an event that you can grab in JavaScript, and then you can really do something crazy, like make something in this slide launch, or make something in this slide interactive. What state events are. You can say, look for that event. When that slide appears on the page, look for that event, and then perhaps run something that detects maybe the beacons in this room, or how many people are connected to the slide, or something like that. So this is pretty cool. Lost the slide. I'll skip that one. So right to left support. So again, usability. Your slides are much easier to read. Usability, right to left support, extensive JavaScript API. Yes, it's really amazing. Parallax backgrounds, where the backgrounds rotate horizontally. Keyboard bindings, etc., etc. This is a really serious presentation framework. If you look at the documentation, you can see that it has a really good set of docs here that shows you how to create the presentation. Now, this is the part that I didn't like when I was doing my presentations, because again, I don't want to spend a lot of time writing HTML. I just want to sort of write my script and have it generate my slides. And so to create a slide, essentially you have a series of slides like this. You create a div with a class of slides, and then in a section you add slide 1, you create slide 2, and then this is kind of a basic page. If you want to do vertical slides, then you kind of set them up like this. But this is the part that I really love. Wow, with Markdown I can kind of do the same thing. So I took that and I took it a little bit further. Now to set up the markdown slides, you can actually define what your separator is. So you can say, every time I put in three, this is what this says is every time I put in 3 carriage returns, go ahead and automatically detect it as a new slide. I use 3 dashes because it's easier for me to, right? So you'll see my example. And then you can say, if you see this sequence of characters, then that means that that is a slide note, and I don't want you to display it in the slide, just something that is readable within either the notes view or when somebody checks the code for this page. And then, okay, so you can also specify a file name. You can say this, I don't want to put any of the code in the page, I just want to read an external file and bring it in as my slides. And so what I do with Reveal.js is I just automatically always read external slides and then allow you to switch from one slide to a completely different file using my sidebar menu thing that I installed that I showed you earlier. So you can also have item level code. So you can say, you know, I'm inserting an image, or in this bullet point, I want this bullet point to have a different class so that it looks a little different. Perhaps you want to highlight it. So that's how you do that. Even though you're writing Markdown right here, you can see that I'm adding a class. You can also add a style tag. So if you don't really want to, if you write a class and you have to go into CSS and create a class attribute and create that attribute and then write the style for it. If you just want to like very quickly make something look different, then you instead of class, you just use the style tag, and just like you would in HTML, you just modify that there. Data fragment. So you can change the order of the fragments. Like if you don't want the first bullet point to show up first as a fragment, then you just switch it, which I've never done, so ignore that. Let's see. You can also change this is how you change the background of color of a slide if you want to, and this is also how you do different colors. So this is fantastic. One of the things that I didn't like about Reveal.js, let me go back up to the top. This is the file structures. This drove me crazy. So when I'm creating my slides and I want to take the slide and put it on a web page, you notice there's a CSS folder, a JS folder, but then there's also a lib folder. The lib folder doesn't have to go in your external folder. Like say that you were putting this on a website. You go, okay, I'm going to grab all this stuff and put it on a website. It would sort of work, but all the files, there's a lot of files in here that are not necessary. So the index.html is the presentation. The package.json doesn't need to go on your external sort of web hosted document. The demo doesn't need to go power.json. A lot of these files don't really need to go there. So if you look at my version of it, so here's Reveal. Yes. So what I've done here is I took everything that is the actual presentation thing that you want to put on your FTP server or somewhere, and I put it all into this folder called Docs. I picked Docs because if you use GitHub, if you have a folder named Docs, then GitHub can generate a GitHub Pages for you, where the contents of that folder become an HTML page automatically for you. So it means that your presentation can be hosted automatically at GitHub for free, and you don't have to do anything with it. As a matter of fact, with this system, you can actually fork this project and create another version of it that has a different presentation if you want. So you can do that forever. You can literally just fork this. If you have a GitHub account, it will create a version of it for you, and then you would edit the Markdown document, which I'll get to in a second. So everything, so if I want to modify things, if I know Sass, I'm a developer, and I know Sass, and I want to modify these files, then everything you need to modify is in that process SCSS folder. So if you don't know Sass, don't worry about it, you don't need to know. It's like if you want to modify my templates, you want to create your own styles, that kind of stuff. And then everything outside there is sort of the cruft that is part of the building tools of Reveal.js that you don't need to mess with for an actual presentation. So essentially I've separated the thing that you want to host somewhere with everything else that creates that thing. So you can literally just grab that docs folder, upload it to an FTP server, or just clone this repo and it will create a presentation for you. You don't need to figure out what the other stuff. Reveal.js actually, when you go through this, the normal process, you can issue like a grunt build, I think, command, and it'll package all the files together into a folder and it'll output it for you. But why do that? I just wanted like a folder that I could grab, right? So that's what I've done in Reveal. So I'll show you my demo for Reveal and show you the features. Let's see. So it's a little plainer. Again, I'm just going with the GitHub sort of style. You can see the persistent navbar that's always at the bottom. So while I'm doing a presentation, that information is always there. So people don't have to wonder, what is that person's like Twitter feed, Twitter account, or and these are all clickable links, so it's always there. So I always do a bit.ly, and then I have all my contact info. This doesn't have to look like this. You can make it whatever you want. And I usually have this sort of how to use this. Now, on my actual lynda.com courses, that's always hidden. So I delete that. And I don't have that bar because we don't really need it to be on the courses. I'll show you how to do it on presentations that I do, quote unquote, professionally. It's always there. So installing is a little bit easier, but there's a couple of ways. If you want to create templates, and if you want to mess with the code, you can do that. You can grab everything that's in that folder, either download it from GitHub, it'll create a zip file, or you can clone it if you know how to do that. Or you can just grab that docs folder and just ignore everything else, and then it's just an HTML page, right? So grab it from the repo, that's a link right there. If you are going to be displaying this on a presentation, you're going to have to run it on some sort of server. So it's easy as taking that docs folder and just FTP in it somewhere so that it's on the web and it's running on a server. You can't just like double click on that index file. It won't work because it has to read the external like markdown document. So it doesn't work unless it's running on a server. You don't have to be complicated about it. Just toss it in an FTP server and it'll show up as a presentation. But if you do want to run it on this local machine, you can there's a command that you can issue that will generate a server so that you can have a live presentation that you can edit, on the fly on your machine without having a web connection. Remember, people say if you're presenting, make sure that you don't assume that you don't have a web connection. So just in case the network goes down, you'll see a lot of people running around going nuts. You'll be fine because your presentation can be run locally just from your machine. And that's sometimes what I do. Okay, so if you want to run that local server so that you don't need a web connection, then you'll have to have Node.js installed, but you don't need it. And the command that you issue to run that server is called run serve. It'll run on localhost actually 8,000. It'll automatically run it for you. So if I want to say, use this presentation on my, create a presentation here, I can either do this, click on this button on GitHub and hit this download zip file. That will download this file right here. I can fork it and then just do it all in GitHub. And then once I unzip that file, you'll get a folder that looks like this. And then what you want to do is, Node.js, then just kind of like switch to that folder. Right, so this is typical like Node.js stuff. Ignore it if you don't care. And then you say npm install. It'll install all the plugins. It'll run. It'll create the files for running the local server. And then once you're ready to run this presentation locally, without having to put it on an FTP server, you can go run serve. And that creates a server for you and automatically loads the presentation. And now we don't need to be connected to the internet. I can just run this locally, right? So now it works exactly like the one that's in GitHub. So your options are fork it, run it on GitHub, modify the markdown document so that it shows your content, download it, upload it to an FTP server, or download it, run npm install, run serve, and then you have a local presentation that doesn't require a web connection. I highly suggest that you do that because you never know when you are going to have a web connection, but then also post it somewhere so that people can actually have access to it from their homes. If you have it running locally, then nobody will be able to see it outside the room. So let's see. So this is actually my local version of it. Here's my, notice that this one is revo.org. And as I mentioned, what you do, so this presentation that you're seeing at this revo.org URL is actually this page right here that's being served by GitHub. To actually make that happen, the only other step that you have to do is you have to go to settings and then down here, you can click on this sort of pop-up. And so here you can say, I want to have GitHub create an online version of this project automatically for me, host it for me, and display the files. And how you set it up is one of three options. You can use the master branch, if the master branch has an index.html, if you're like into Node.js. If your package.json has a start file and it's listed in the package.json, then it'll run that app.js. Don't worry if you don't understand my language, it's fine. Or notice that one of the options is to use the docs folder within that GitHub package, right? So that's why I call that folder the docs folder, because you can literally just, whenever you have a GitHub repo, just toss that folder in there, and then you can automatically tell GitHub to use it as the presentation. So it will create a URL for you. Mine looks really nice because I also added Reveal.org. Reveal.org is actually something that I added to GitHub so that I have an easier to remember kind of link that I can give out. Reveal.org/Reveal, I think it is, right? So, all right, so that's just installing. Oh, and you can use that docs folder, just put it in any GitHub repo, toss it into an FTP server, and it works just fine. So this is the simplest slide you can make. It does whatever a spider can. Most of you remember that from Spider-Man. It's the song from the 70s, which I remember. And it really means that it does whatever Reveal.js does. So if I show you some things about the Reveal.js platform, this is a clone of it. It's just organized in a different way. I got some things turned on by default. I added some plugins by default. And I changed the way that it works so that it's like I don't have to think about it. I know what to do. And what I have to do essentially is just edit that markdown document. So in here, in the docs folder, ignoring all this other crud, I have a slides folder. This is where my presentations live. So the only things that you have to edit are my slides folder. So this is actually markdown files with the code for my slides as well as for my notes. And then notice that in this sorry, so this is actually what that looks like, what markdown looks like, but let's not get into that yet. So I have two presentations here, and then I have this index.html file. This is just a regular web page that you're literally seeing when you go to that website. And if we take a look at this, I said that I really like that. You can see that it sort of looks more complicated than a traditional web page because Reveal.js has a lot of things that you can turn on. So for example, I turn my controls off. Like Reveal.js has this little set of 4 arrows that display by default and you can click through them. I always hide that. Again, when I'm recording, I don't want anything showing like that. I just want people to focus on the bullet points, et cetera, et cetera. It has a progress bar, all kinds of stuff. So essentially, the part of the opinionated Reveal.js is me turning off all the options that I don't like and turning everything else back on. If you want to, though, you can customize it. Once you fork it, once you copy it, you can change any of this and turn those things back on. And so the important things are my persistent navbar code. So this is the thing at the bottom. If you don't want this, just delete it. Or if you want to put something else in here, type in your own stuff in there. This is HTML. It's sort of the only HTML that you would have to know. Right here, this is the only other important section. And this is when this is pulled up, what document should I read from that slides folder? You wanted to read the demo.md by default, some other markdown file by default. And then this right here is the data separator. It means that if I have 3 dashes, like a carriage return, 3 dashes, and then another carriage return, that means that it's going to be like this is a new slide. And then if you have 2 double greater than signs right next to each other, everything after that point in that slide are notes, author notes. Right? That's the only setup. You don't have to mess with this file anymore. The only other thing that you would do is start to edit the markdown file. So I'm going to pull it up in Atom. I know I said that. Visual Studio Code is the best thing. That's just because I work at Microsoft now. So I will. Atom has this really cool thing called Markdown Preview, just to show you kind of a more user-friendly sort of version of what this code looks like when you read it as a markdown file. You can see the code is so I could literally just sort of send somebody an HTML version, this HTML version, or export this as a PDF if I want to. And this is the only thing I have to edit. So this, I think, happens to be, so this is actually from the web. This happens to be this thing running from my local server, which I think is still running. So if I it's Reveal. Notice that I changed something and it automatically updates. So no, if I'm doing a live demo, somebody will go, oh, that link doesn't work, then I can just go in here and edit. Or, oh, that's a typo, then I can very quickly just go in and fix the typo and do whatever. So you can see this is the same thing on the right and on the left. This is responsive, so I can kind of have both side by side to show you. Like the code, forgive me if it's really designed for it was originally designed for my course development. So sometimes things look great as long as you have a proportion. All right, so next up, installing. We already covered all this. Simplest slide, so let's look at that code. So this is how this is pretty much Markdown. This right here is a heading in Markdown. This is a heading level 1. This is a heading level 2. Guess what a heading level 3 is? 4, 5, 6. That's Markdown. There's actually an alternative version where you put in like equal signs underneath. But for this is a heading level 2, usually what I make it. And then you literally just type in text for that paragraph, and you've got the paragraph. If you have a link, the format for a link is like this. You put the name of the link in brackets, and then in parentheses, right next to those brackets, you put in the link, and it'll create a clickable link to the element. Because I was typing greater than signs, you can embed any HTML within your Markdown, and it'll display as HTML. But if you put in an angle bracket, it thinks you're writing HTML. So I have to use like ampersand GT and ampersand GT. That means greater than, right? Here's another link, and this one actually has HTML. You can see that this is actually an HTML link. So if you want to, you can also write HTML. You can also see that this is my author notes section. So this text is not being displayed in the slide, right? But it does show up in my notes, and this is what I read from when I'm performing like the slides. So persistent navigation, I already showed you the code at the bottom. This is what it looks like. And this is actually, notice that on the left, right here on the slide, this has nice syntax highlighting. It's kind of in its own little frame with a background color. All I do on the right to create that is just paste the code. I put in 3 little tick marks right here. 3 little tick marks are the end. This means begin code, end code. And it literally displays it really nice, and by default in Reveal, this is editable. If you were doing regular Reveal, you would have to add some additional code, and I'm like, I want every code. Why would I not want my code to be editable? I would want that. All right, so author notes, I got multiple, what's this next? All right, multiple slides. You can have more than one slide original. You do that by modifying the link. So you can actually, can you click on this? No, let's see this. It's not good. Okay, so actually, the next slide actually shows you there's a sidebar menu. If you hit the MP, you get the sidebar menu. You can quickly go to any slide, or you can click on this files menu, and then you can switch to another slide. So if I click on the next 50, it's the next 50 presentation that you saw earlier. And so usually when I am doing a presentation for Linda, I write out all my scripts in this slides folder. So whenever I'm doing movie 2, chapter 2, movie 3, I'll have a slide called, whatever. You know, I forgot what I just said, so whatever it was, 2 or 3, I might give it a title, and then I'll do like .md at the end. And so now I have one single document. I don't have to write, I used to have to write like 10 different index.html documents, and I'm like, no. I'm a developer, I know better than this. I can write something that's going to make it simpler. Just write different Markdown files. And then, so let me actually switch back so I can show you the rest of the files. Workshop. And there's that document. Again, I could actually link to a specific slide. So multiple slides use the menu. There is an index file in that document. Let's see, back to the code. post it. So there is a little, right now, because I just added that, there is actually an extra file called index.html, and this file is what appears on that slide out menu on that second tab that lets you go to whatever links. You can actually put anything in that second link, and you can actually, with that plugin, you can create multiple additional little tabs, and they can be whatever you want. They can have whatever icon you want. My goal is to automate this, so like hopefully you just pull this up, it'll read that directory, and it'll just build this from that directory, so I don't have to. So I don't have to do that. So I'm a developer. I'm by nature lazy, and I hate doing things that are repetitive. That's what computers are for. So that's why I make them like this. So all the presentations, as I mentioned, presentations live in a docs folder, right? These are the two presentations plus that index file. And all I need to do to create another presentation is like make another copy of that, and now I have yet another presentation, say like next to, right? And I can change the URL here to the next to, and it would show me that presentation. So usually when I do a presentation, I just make a copy of my demo. Because my demo has like almost every way of doing the code. And then I will do my outline kind of on top of it. And if I need something, I'll grab it like from the predefined code. All right, so fragments are on by default in this version. With regular Reveal.js, it's really awful. Like you have to have that comment at the end of every line that says class equals fragment, and no. I like fragments, so sorry if you don't like them. You can turn that feature off if you want to. So you can see also that to create lists, so let's pull this back up here. So here's what a list looks like. See how easy it is to write? You literally just go like 1, they're on by default, 2, blah, blah, blah. And if you want a list inside a list item, you just like hit tab, you type in your other list item, and it writes all that really difficult list item, OL, LI code for you. That's part of Markdown. Markdown does that. If you do code, notice that I've added recently a series of classes for these little code things, right? So that I did a lot of stuff with a Bootstrap, and I wanted sort of the Bootstrap classes for code, so I made those. And here you do have to write some HTML, so you just do this. You go like code class, code primary, code class, code success. Then I also added, this tooltip so that you can actually roll over items, and it gives you this little tooltip as you roll over the element. A lot of times, I'm explaining something and I want to have something pop up, so I added that into my version of Reveal.js. This one is a template that we have at Linda that all of a sudden it's sort of messed up. It's supposed to have a bar kind of like that at the top. It's really difficult to write that CSS, unfortunately. And it works at like right resolution, but it doesn't work everywhere. But so for example, you can create a different style for one of your pages by doing this, what I'm doing here, saying this slide has an element called var, and what it does, it creates a class at the top of the page. Whenever that slide comes to view, whenever it's out of view, it'll delete it. And that means that you can do something with the CSS that displays it completely different for that element. So my next slide, ignore that one. My next one is a slide with an icon. Another thing that I've done with Reveal.js is incorporate by default Font Awesome. Font Awesome is a series of icons that are pre-drawn, are open source for you. So if you want to have a little slide with an icon like this, then it's already done for you. All you need to do is add this little piece of code. This is just how you do icons with Font Awesome. So that's just the code. And you would put in, like instead of HTML5, you would put in whatever you want. Here's a logo for the icon. So has icon, template with an icon, et cetera. Okay, and so this, you type in this code at the beginning of that slide. You notice that every slide has a carriage return, 3 dashes, and then another carriage return. This means that this is a new slide. Background video, so to show you the code for that. It's really easy and goes kind of full screen. It has to be the right proportion for your presentation, unfortunately. Again, something I might improve in the future. Also notice that the bar at the bottom takes up some of that room. It is centered, but it's just the bar is really thick at the bottom. So, So you do like add this code like slide, data, state, text on video. This adds a class, and then actually you don't need this part, but you do need this data background video, and then a link to the video here, and that will show that video full screen. You can also literally put in a video tag, and then it won't be a full screen background. It'll just show as video with controls, and then you can add any of the HTML controls that you want. Same thing for a background image. It looks very similar. So background image, the code for that is data background image, and then you have the link to the image over here. It's pretty similar. I don't know if I want to have any. So here's what the code looks like. I think I mentioned this already. You can actually specify the syntax highlighting. So when you just put three tick marks, it will try to guess what kind of code you're writing. Sometimes it will get confused. So you can just type in the language and it'll do a better job of guessing. You can also type in, a lot of times if I'm actually doing code for Linda, I'll write like the actual file name here, file name.html. And that's just so that I know that actually it won't be here, it will be on my notes. So that I know that when I'm typing that code, that's the file name that I'm updating when I'm recording that course on Linda. Syntax highlighted, editable by default, really nice. This is cool. I mentioned that you can embed anything, and which includes something like CodePen. So this is actually like an embedded CodePen. I'm sorry, it's so small. But this is like a CodePen that you can put in here. And you can have live coding in your samples. CodePen's super nice because it also imports other libraries, and the way that you just go to CodePen and you just copy the code from CodePen, and then you have code that you can edit. Also, the students can actually go into that CodePen, go into that slide and edit with you. Reveal.js has a, what is it called? It's a mode where you can broadcast your presentation. Am I like running on that more? Yeah, maybe a couple slides left. So it has a mode where you can broadcast, so people can actually be looking at your slide, and as you advance, theirs will advance on however many computers connected as well, which is pretty cool. All right, so tables look like this. They are a little bit complicated. They look really horrible, but essentially you just have like a bar for every cell. See, and then you can sort of specify how they align here, and then you put in kind of like a bar for every piece of content. There is a really good table generator, so if you have like an Excel spreadsheet, you just copy and paste it into the table generator. It'll write the markdown for you, and then you just paste it in here. And there's a link to it right there. So I think that's the last slide. I'm sorry I didn't give you guys time to actually play with this, but I think if you guys are doing a presentation for that proposal that we're all doing, that will be a fantastic time to test it out, because it's designed to be simple to use. You're just editing a text document. It doesn't have to have all these fancy sort of things in it. You literally can just type paragraphs, little dashes for the bullet points, and you have an accessible online presentation that is super easy to write. It can be like, for me, I'm not just making my slides, I'm making my slides and my scripts at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thanks,